She was the first woman who ever walked away from him. Steve was sitting at the bar when she left. Didn't say goodbye, didn't make a scene. Just put her napkin on the table, picked up her purse, and walked out of the restaurant. He watched her go. Black dress, heels clicking on the marble floor. The hostess said something to her on the way out. She smiled, nodded, kept walking. It was January 1973, 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. The restaurant was Dan Tana's in West Hollywood. Red leather booths, checkered tablecloths, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and pretended not to notice when someone famous got stood up. Steve sat there for another 10 minutes, finished his scotch, ordered another one. The bartender didn't say anything, just poured. The woman's name was Ali MacGraw. She was an actress, had done Love Story a few years back. Big hit, made her a star. She was married to Robert Evans. Big producer, powerful guy, connected. She was also the most beautiful woman Steve had ever seen who didn't seem to care that he was Steve McQueen. And that's what made her dangerous. They'd met 6 weeks earlier, December, some party in Malibu, industry thing. Steve almost didn't go. He'd been living in a beach house in Trancas, mostly alone, avoiding people, avoiding life. But his agent said he needed to be seen. Said people were starting to think he'd disappeared, that he'd given up, that the Le Mans disaster had broken him. So Steve went. Ali was standing by the window when he walked in, talking to someone he didn't recognize. She was laughing. Real laugh. Not the Hollywood kind. The kind that made you want to know what was funny. Steve walked over, interrupted the conversation. The other person drifted away. "Steve McQueen," he said, holding out his hand. She looked at it, didn't shake it. "I know who you are. And you are. Leaving soon." "Why?" "Because these parties are terrible, and I only came because my husband made me." Steve smiled. "Husband, so you're married. Observant. Happily?" Ali raised an eyebrow. "That's a bold question from someone I met 30 seconds ago. I don't do small talk." Clearly. They stood there, looking at each other. The party moved around them like water around rocks. "Have dinner with me?" Steve said. "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm married, and you're Steve McQueen, and nothing good comes from that combination." "How do you know?" "I read the tabloids." Steve laughed. "You shouldn't believe everything you read." "Should I believe any of it?" "Probably not." Ali smiled. Small, controlled. "Thanks for the offer, but I'm going to pass." She walked away. Steve watched her go. Felt something he hadn't felt in years. Interest. Real interest. Not just attraction. Not just the hunt. Something else. He wanted to know her. Over the next 6 weeks, Steve kept running into her. Different parties, different restaurants. Always accidental. Except it wasn't accidental because Steve was making it happen. He'd find out where she'd be. Show up, act surprised. "Ali MacGraw, funny seeing you here." She'd look at him, unimpressed. "Is it?" "Complete coincidence." Right. They'd talk. Brief conversations. 5 minutes, 10. She never stayed long. Never gave him her number. Never agreed to dinner. But she also never told him to stop. Until tonight. Dan Tana's had been Steve's idea. Neutral territory. Public enough to be safe. Private enough to talk. He'd made a reservation. Told Ali's assistant it was a professional conversation. About a movie. About working together. It was a lie. There was no movie. Steve just wanted to have dinner with her. Ali showed up 20 minutes late. Sat down without apologizing. Ordered wine. Looked at him like she was studying something under glass. "So," she said. "What's this movie you wanted to talk about?" "There is no movie." "I know. Then why did you come?" Ali took a sip of wine. Set the glass down carefully. Because I wanted to see if you'd actually admit it. Most men would have made something up, pitched some fake project. You just told the truth. I try to. Do you? Most of the time. What about the rest of the time? Steve leaned back. The rest of the time, I lie, like everyone else. Ali smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're still married, aren't you? Separated. That's not the same as divorced. Close enough? Not really. Steve looked at her, at the way she held herself. Controlled, careful, like she was always ready to leave. Why did you really come tonight? I told you. No, really, why? Ali was quiet for a moment. Outside, cars passed on Santa Monica Boulevard. Inside, someone was laughing at another table. The kitchen door swung open and closed. Open and closed. Because I'm unhappy, she said finally. And you seem unhappy. And misery loves company. That's a hell of a reason. It's honest. They talked for an hour. About their marriages, their careers, their lives that looked perfect from the outside but felt empty from the inside. Ali told him about Robert, how he was brilliant, successful, how being married to him felt like being an accessory in someone else's story. Steve told her about Neela, about the divorce that wasn't quite final, about his kids who wouldn't talk to him, about feeling like he'd destroyed everything good in his life chasing something he couldn't even name. Do you regret it? Ali asked. The choices you made. Every day. Would you make them again? Steve thought about it. About Le Mans. About the refusal to sign. About the slow destruction of his marriage. Yeah, probably. Why? Because the alternative is living someone else's life. And I tried that. It almost killed me. Ali nodded slowly, like she understood. Like maybe she was living someone else's life too. Around 9:30, Steve reached across the table, took her hand. Ali looked down at their hands, didn't pull away, but didn't squeeze back either. Come home with me, Steve said. No? Why not? Because I'm married. Because you're barely separated. Because this, she gestured between them, is a bad idea. The best things usually are. That's what people say before they ruin their lives. Maybe my life needs ruining. Maybe it needs to be torn down completely so I can start over. Ali pulled her hand back. I'm not here to help you tear down your life, Steve. Then why are you here? She didn't answer. Steve leaned forward. You feel it too. I know you do, whatever this is. You feel it. Feeling something doesn't mean you should act on it. Why not? Because some things are too dangerous. Some things cost too much. What if I'm willing to pay? Ali looked at him. Really looked at him. Her eyes were dark, sad, full of something he couldn't read. That's the problem, she said quietly. You're not the one who pays. It's everyone around you. She stood up. Steve stood too. Ali, thank you for dinner. Don't leave. I have to. Why? Because if I stay, I'll do something we'll both regret. And I've regretted enough things in my life. She picked up her purse, started to walk away. Steve caught her arm, gently. One more dinner. That's all I'm asking. Ali looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face. No. Why? Because one dinner becomes two. Two becomes three. And eventually I'll convince myself that leaving my husband for you makes sense. That starting something with a man who destroys everything he touches is a good idea. And it's not. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you better than you think. I've read the articles, heard the stories. You're brilliant, talented, charismatic, and you're also selfish and self-destructive, and you'll break my heart without even meaning to. How do you know? Because men like you always do. She pulled her arm away. This time, Steve let her go. She walked to the door. The hostess said something. She smiled, nodded, walked out into the night. And Steve stood there in the middle of Dan Tana's, watching her leave, feeling something he hadn't felt since Neela left. Loss? The bartender came over. Another scotch? Yeah. The bartender poured, slid the glass across. Tough night? Steve looked at the door where Ali had disappeared. You have no idea. She'll come back, they always do. Not this one. How do you know? Because she's smart, and smart women don't make the same mistake twice. The bartender shrugged. Maybe she'll make a different mistake instead. Steve didn't see Ali again for 3 weeks. He thought about calling, had her number, could have reached out, but something stopped him. Some small piece of pride, or maybe respect. She'd said no. She'd walked away. He needed to accept that. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. About the way she looked at him like she could see through all his bullshit. About the way she didn't laugh at his jokes just because he was famous. About the way she walked out when every other woman he'd known would have stayed. She was the first woman who'd ever treated him like he wasn't special. And that made her the most special person he'd met in years. It was February when he saw her again. Coffee shop in Santa Monica. Steve was reading the trades, pretending to care about Hollywood. Ali walked in, alone. She saw him. Their eyes met. She hesitated. Then she walked over. Mind if I sit? She asked. Steve gestured to the empty chair. She sat, ordered coffee. They sat in silence for a moment. I filed for divorce, Ali said finally. Steve looked up. When? Last week. Because of me? No, because of me. Because I was unhappy. Because staying would have been a lie. Steve nodded slowly. How do you feel? Terrified, relieved, stupid. Take your pick. All of the above? Yeah, all of the above. They sat there, drinking coffee, not talking. The cafe was busy, people coming and going, no one paying attention to two famous people sitting in the corner looking like regular humans. I was wrong, Ali said. About what? About you. You're not going to destroy everything you touch. How do you know? She smiled, small, sad. Because you already did. And you're still here, still trying. That counts for something. Steve reached across the table. This time, when he took her hand, she squeezed back. Dinner? He asked. Yeah, dinner. Tonight? Tomorrow. Let's not rush this. You sure? Ali looked at him. At this broken, brilliant, impossible man who'd somehow gotten under her skin despite all her better judgment. No, she said. I'm not sure about anything anymore. They started seeing each other the next week. Quietly at first. Dinner, drives, long conversations about everything and nothing. 2 months later, they were living together. 6 months later, they were engaged. A year later, they were married. And Ali MacGraw became the second wife of Steve McQueen. The woman who said no. The woman who walked away. The woman who eventually came back despite knowing better. Because that's the thing about Steve McQueen. He was impossible to say no to forever, even when you should. Especially when you should. Years later, someone asked Ali why she married him. She thought about it. About that first dinner at Dan Tana's. About walking out. About coming back. Because he was honest, she said finally. Not about his flaws. He lied about those constantly, but about who he was. About the damage he'd caused. About the fact that he'd probably cause more. And somehow that honesty made me think maybe this time would be different. Was it? Ali smiled. Sad. Knowing. No, but I loved him anyway.